Have you ever thought about how our diets affect the world around us? How the meat we eat is made? What goes on behind all of that? And it's very complicated, and there's so much that goes on behind that, and I want to explore that in this video. I hope to give you a better understanding of the effects of meat on your health, your body, the environment, and on the animals themselves. So as the world gets richer, our meat consumption skyrockets, and there is no doubt that the demand for meat will continue to increase. So we need to start thinking about what we can do to not only be able to sustain this growth, but so that it does not destroy the world or cause any other serious problems, in addition to fixing some of the issues that have been underlying in the meat industry for centuries. Today, the average American eats 256 pounds of meat a year. That is 208 pounds more than the recommended amount of 48 pounds per person. That's right. We're eating 5 times as much meat as is recommended. In addition to that, most of the meat we eat is processed, which is recommended to not eat at all. So what are these issues? Why is meat bad? Why can't we just go ahead and eat 256 pounds a year of meat? I mean, meat's pretty great. There is nothing in the world like meat. Meat contains everything we need, from proteins to energy to vitamins and everything else, except for vitamin C. If we were just to eat meat for a very long time and nothing else, we'd be pretty much okay, except for vitamin C. After a while, we would get scurvy, and scurvy is caused by a lack of vitamin C, which is pretty important. You'd experience bleeding gums, weakness, fatigue, and a couple of other things, so you really do need to eat plants. But other than the lack of vitamin C, why is meat bad? I mean, a lack of vitamin C doesn't make meat bad. It just means it doesn't have everything that we need. You know, we need to have some sort of variety. This is not necessarily a bad thing. So what is so bad about meat? Well, in chicken, one of the main things is a large amount of saturated fat. Fish is contaminated with chemical residue from the oceans, which makes it bad to eat. Otherwise, fish is very healthy and has very little negative aspects to it, but this contamination in the oceans make it not good in large amounts. It's not good in large amounts. And with red meat, it gets a little bit more complicated because it depends on the animal and how the animal was processed. Most meat processing adds chemicals to the meat like nitrates and nitrites that is bad and harmful for us, that destroys our DNA. And this could lead to cancer. In fact, the WHO has placed processed meat in the same category as plutonium, asbestos, and smoking. What? That is alarming as heck. I mean, I think of myself as a healthy person. I don't smoke. I don't go out and inhale a bunch of asbestos. I don't mess around with plutonium, but you're telling me that eating processed meat is messing me up? What the heck, man? It's just, why didn't anybody tell me this? Okay, I'm calmed down now. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's continue. According to many studies, eating meat increases the risk of stroke by 13%, the risk of diabetes by 51%, and the risk of heart disease by 42%. A lot of this not only depends on the processing of the meat, but how the animal was grown and how many antibiotics they were fed, and many other factors like that. But most of the meat that is produced in the US is produced in a pretty bad way, and they are fed many antibiotics. Now, considering all these benefits and drawbacks, meat is very inefficient. So currently on Earth, there's about 23 billion chickens, 1.5 billion cows, 1 billion pigs, and 1 billion sheep. For reference, chickens alone are 3 times larger in numbers than the entire human population. That's crazy. And these chickens are not just, world chickens that are out there. They're chickens that are being bred specifically so that we can eat them. There are 3 times more chickens than humans on Earth with the purpose of food, I guess. I don't know, it's just something weird to think about, but let's continue. And in order to feed all these animals, we need to make a lot of food. In fact, 83% of all farmland in the United States, in the world actually, I'm sorry, not the United States, in the world, is used with the purpose of feeding livestock. In addition to that, meat and dairy production accounts for 20% of fresh water consumption in the world. But remember that I said that growing meat is very inefficient? Well, it's because all this food that we're feeding them, all this energy that they're getting, is not all turned into energy, into meat. Most of it is used to keep the animal itself alive. In fact, only 4% of all proteins fed to the animal are turned into muscle, or meat, which is what we then eat. And only 3% of calories fed to cows are turned into beef. The other 97% of calories is completely lost to us, all used to simply keep the animal alive. So you see, these 97% that we use to keep the animal alive, we could have used to feed far more people. For just 1 kilogram of meat, you need 25 kilograms of grain and over 15,000 liters of fresh water. According to many estimates, if we were not to grow animals, if we would just take what we grow and feed it to the people, we would be able to sustain, with what we currently grow, an additional 3.5 billion humans. That's right, we could pretty much easily end world hunger if we just didn't eat meat. Same production, no additional anything, we're just not making meat. We're just taking everything we grow, and instead of feeding animals, we're feeding it directly to the people. I'm not usually this riled up, but the research for this video has really surprised me, and I'm a little more riled up than usual. So I'm sorry about that if it bothers you. But we're not done. In addition to everything I just mentioned, there's a lot more. In fact, the meat and dairy industry account for a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, 15% of it. And that's a very significant number. That is more emissions than all the planes, ships, cars, and trucks in the world. Okay, so now we move into animal care. Now, this is also very interesting. How should I say this? We kill a lot of animals, and we don't treat them well. In fact, every year we kill over 74 billion animals for our consumption. That is more humans that have ever lived in our 200,000 year history. That's right, every year we kill more animals than humans have ever lived on the planet of the Earth. And unfortunately, most of these animals are grown in large industrial farms that are not very kind to the animals. These large industrial farms have little regard for the quality of life for these animals. Most pigs are raised in large windowless sheds, in pens too narrow to even turn around, where they are forced to give birth over and over again, all until it's their turn to become bacon. Cows are also forced to continuously breed to ensure a supply of milk, and their calves are separated only hours after birth. Cattle for meat production are put in small pens where they can barely move and put on weight a lot faster. And as these conditions are so bad, animals get very sick if it's not for antibiotics. So these animals have to be fed a lot of antibiotics. In the United States, as much as 83% of all antibiotics go to the animal, to livestock. But arguably, the chickens have it the worst of all animals we grow for our consumption. They're placed in tight, confined spaces where they can't develop the social structures that they require in order to live a regular life. And because of this, they end up fighting. And to prevent this, to prevent them from killing each other, farmers cut off their beaks and claws. And when these chickens are born, they're separated by gender. And male chickens, or young roosters, are considered worthless. Roosters are not suitable for meat, and they don't lay eggs. So these roosters are thrown in another area where they're usually gassed to death and then pulverized, turned into mush. And this goes into other food products, but I'm not going to talk about that in this video. And organic farms, they're not so great either. According to guidelines, there could be 5 chickens in a 1 meter square, which is far from suitable or a good life. Now, there's a lot more to go into, a lot more details and a lot more to talk about, but for this video, that's it. There'll be more videos in the future about this and talking about this, so make sure you subscribe. But anyway, I just want to mention that, meat is not the only reason for us being unhealthy, although it is a big contributor. Not all animals are mistreated and are in terrible conditions, but most are. Well, hopefully you have a better understanding of meat, the industry, the effects on your body, and other aspects of it, and maybe I've inspired you to do some more research and maybe even cut down on processed meats and become healthier yourself. Future generations will likely be appalled at how we treated animals and grew them. Future technology will change things a lot. So if you guys want to see more about this, I think there's a lot of exciting things coming for the future of meat. If you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe. Anyway, I also talk about business and other things on this channel, so just subscribe, all right? I'll see you guys next time.